Borders are funny.
No one ever really gives that much thought, but like we really were just like, okay, yeah, that bit's yours, this one's mine, and I'll just decide to agree with it for the most part. What the hell was I talking about? Oh!
NorCal versus SoCal. While they may be part of the same state, there are tons of ways to discuss this topic. The fact that one is closer to one pole than the other is very important according to your one Dodgers-obsessed drunk uncle.
You can put these two up against each other for quite literally anything. Name it, someone will debate it. Quality of life, you bet. Tourist attractions, absolutely. Who's got the city more like walking to the final boss area of a video game? Everything.
And today we'll be putting them against each other in terms of trains, because what else do you think I'd be talking about?
So here's how this will work. I'll be making a set of videos putting these two regions up against each other in terms of their flagship regional rails, their Amtrak services, their secondary regional / commuter rail services, and finally their future plans to improve. The area I will be considering NorCal for this video is everything north of San Luis Obispo and Bakersfield. SoCal will be everything south of those locations. I know some people will be absolutely appalled at me saying that for some reason.
How dare you say I'm a part of this part of my state and not the other? I don't care that I'm objectively in the middle of those two, I will not be having it!
But that's where we're going with based on the services in each region and how far they serve. Anyway, let's yap no longer and start yapping. This video's topic will be...
While you could say the flagship service of a region is its Amtrak state-supported service, I'd say that in terms of SoCal and NorCal, their regional rail services are much more representing of their regions.
Metrolink versus Caltrain. Now you see, I face a choice here. I can either take the foamy perspective, or I can take the urbanist perspective. I choose both and neither at the same time.
Cause I'm just such a daredevil like that. Basically, I'm going to be looking at these two as a service. Sorry, foamers, but just because you don't like EMUs or F-125s doesn't mean I'm gonna call these things garbage, even though I'm pretty sure I've fallen asleep filming both of them.
Starting south and heading north, let's start with Metrolink. Metrolink serves the counties of Los Angeles, San Bernardino, Riverside, Ventura, Orange, San Diego, and at some point Santa Barbara. They have 7 main lines, all with a name and a color. The San Bernardino line serves
Simi Valley.
San Bernardino County.
Damn it.
The Antelope Valley line serves
Simi Valley.
the San Fernando, Santa Clarita, and Antelope Valley.
Damn it.
The Riverside line serves
Third time's the charm, Simi Valley.
Riverside County via half of the western Los Angeles metro area.
Damn it.
The 91 Paris Valley line serves
Three's a scam anyways. Fourth time's the charm, Simi Valley.
Paris Valley via the 91 freeway corridor. Who would have guessed?
Not me, obviously.
The Orange County line serves
Give me an S. Give me an I.
Orange and San Diego counties. The Inland Empire Orange County line is the only line that doesn't serve Los Angeles Union Station. It serves, who would have thought,
Simi Valley.
the Inland Empire, Orange, and San Diego counties. And last but not least, the Ventura County line serves...
You know what? No, I'm not gonna say it again. I'm a changed man. I believe the Ventura County line goes to Redlands, Assyria.
Ventura County via Simi Valley and the Santa Susana Pass.
Now you're probably yelling at me, but wait, you forgot about Arrow. Want to hear my thoughts on Arrow?
Hello, and welcome to my presentation. Today we're going to be discussing what does 9 miles and a hydrogen doohickey mean for the future of Southern California as we know it. Thank you for watching my presentation. Okay, fine. Arrow is Metrolink's 8th line, and it's a small service utilizing DMUs and 1 hydrogen-powered ZEMU, traveling 9 miles from San Bernardino to the Redlands. You may have heard me call this Metrolink's adopted child before. That statement is very true. Arrow was created by Omnitrans, and then Omnitrans started to struggle in around 2019, so Metrolink took up the project. Had Arrow not existed, I feel we would have just seen the San Bernardino line travel to the Redlands, which honestly would have been more useful as Arrow's ridership is so low it pretty much has to be chunked in with the other Metrolink lines, unlike its much more successful sister Sprinter, because if they treat this thing how NCTD treats Sprinter, I think people would start writing Arrow out of pity. Why else would I be here?
Past whatever the hell was going on in the Redlands, Metrolink serves most of Southern California pretty well, but has always been on the rather lackluster side of things.
Metrolink, to me at least, has always been the most slightly above average a regional rail can get. On the San Bernardino line, which I'd say is Metrolink's flagship line, the service runs a minimum of hourly service from 3 a.m. all the way till midnight, with reaching 30-minute frequencies each way during peak times. It runs bi-hourly from 6 a.m. to midnight on weekends, and yes, you did hear that right, the first train on weekdays departs San Bernardino downtown at 3:43 a.m. I would do anything not to ride that train. The total travel time of the San Bernardino line is 1 hour 45 minutes end to end. It's not anything I'd call groundbreaking, but it's a good service, and it's not hard to see why this is Metrolink's line with the highest ridership on both weekdays and weekends. The Antelope Valley line is in second place on weekend ridership and is in third place on weekday ridership.
What the hell is an Antelope Valley line?
I feel half of everyone only knows this line because it was the first to get put in Train Sim World.
Oh, the one from TSW.
This one runs almost hourly frequencies on weekdays and runs bi-hourly on weekends. It runs from 4 a.m. to midnight on weekdays and 6 a.m. to midnight on weekends. Ooh, you feel that? It's the feeling of something actually being uniform and transit scheduling. You know, Metrolink isn't actually that bad.
Wait, hold on. I've reached my limit on how long I can go without bitching.
This is a gripe I have with the Metrolink system as a whole, but I use the Antelope Valley line to go to Magic Mountain and please my coaster-thuzy tendencies, so this is where I get to bring up how frustrating it is to see how close Metrolink comes to being transferable to Surfliner and other services. I live in San Diego. To get to Magic Mountain, I take 761 to 1261 on weekends and 203 on weekdays. That isn't where my problem is. My problem is getting home. It doesn't matter what train I take. All Surfliners depart Los Angeles at 10 after the hour, all AV line trains arrive at 20 after the hour, meaning what could be just a simple 10 or 5 minute transfer had Metrolink made the AV line just 15 or 20 minutes earlier is now a nearly 50-minute transfer, while not insanely large like the atrocious transfer for some of the San Joaquin Gold Runner buses, but it's still not great, and this is far from an isolated issue.
But past that, the AV line is just like the SB line in that it works well and is versatile for most situations. The other lines on Metrolink, however, are not really the same story.
Alright, the 91 Paris Valley line. If the SB and AV lines are just above average, then the PV line is just below average. It runs hourly during rush hour in rush hour directions from 4 to 7 a.m. westbound out of Paris South and 3 to 6 p.m. out of LA Union Station. Each direction has 3 non-peak hour trains. For westbound, there's a departure from Paris South at 10:20 a.m., 1:20, and 3:30 p.m. After that, no transit for you. You just have to brave the hell that is the 215 and 60 interchange, which is always backed up no matter when you catch it. And for eastbound, there's a departure from LA at 7:33 a.m., 9:33 a.m., and 12:33 p.m. On weekends, it is... I thought weekend service was supposed to not follow peak hour times, and don't even get me started on those frequencies. Now yes, I get it. Moreno and Paris Valley is about as interesting as the barren wasteland they were pre-civilization, but you mean to tell me you really couldn't give the PV line a third train? You really needed to have that last departure at 8:10 a.m. from Paris South and couldn't possibly do any more?
Then again, these are the same people who run the Riverside line.
Okay, fine, I'll give you this, Metrolink. The PV line does have the third highest weekend ridership, so it's obvious it's not the most dire thing in the world. But I just think running a train in the opposite direction or just giving some more versatile time frames would boost that weekend ridership.
Now, before you start screaming at me in the comments about rolling stock, trust me, I'm getting there. We're on 3 of 7 lines.
The PV line is also 4th in weekday ridership, but I feel that's just a case of the only Paris Valley exclusive stations minus Paris downtown look either like a mix of budget Silicon Valley with a whole lot of surface parking, or are just straight up in the middle of a field. Why does Paris South even exist? Next up is the Inland Empire Orange County line. This line is unique in that it's the only line that doesn't go to LA Union Station, and is just the most infuriating thing to try and use as a San Diego resident.
The reason why San Diego isn't in the name of any Metrolink lines is because while it is served, it's not that well served.
The IEOC line runs 18 trains on weekdays, but only 2 of those serve Oceanside, one in the morning going towards Oceanside, one going out in the afternoon towards San Bernardino. And that's not even mentioning how San Bernardino is only served during rush hour and rush hour directions on weekdays. The inconvenient way of scheduling, along with it being more of a connector service than a commuter service, is why it's 6th in weekday ridership, Weekends are not much better. IEOC on weekends is basically if you took the IEOC as it is and then removed everything except the round trip to Oceanside. On weekends, the IEOC runs 2 round trips, 2 trains going outbound in the morning, 2 inbound in the afternoon. The IEOC is very obviously a service for those living in Riverside and San Bernardino to get to Orange County, which, yes, is definitely something people do. But again, I just feel that weekend ridership would climb if you ran a train going the other way, or for the love of God, just ran more trains.
The IEOC ranks 4th in weekend ridership, all because of that crowd I mentioned who's traveling from the Inland Empire to Orange County. It's a similar story to the Paris Valley line, where the best way to make this line better would just be to run trains in opposite directions.
Next up is the Orange County line, which is so average. The Orange County line has a few things I'd like to go over. First off, it's just like the IEOC, which is it runs close to hourly service on weekdays, but half of that service is from Laguna Niguel / Irvine and north. While it's not as bad as the IEOC, the OC line runs 26 trains on weekdays, 10 of which serve Oceanside, and as an added bonus, 7 serve Commerce Station, but Commerce is borderline useless as a station, so that really doesn't count.
And now I get to bring up the issue of transfers again, because when it comes to transfers, Metrolink just for some reason just can't.
This transfer in particular is especially dumb. On weekdays, there's a train that arrives into Oceanside at 10:38 that could meet the coaster that departs around that time. But the coaster departs 2 minutes earlier. Neither of you could have possibly made your schedules just 5 minutes different from how they are now, and trust me, this is not an isolated case. 626 with 648, negative 22-minute transfer. 635 with 621, negative 24-minute transfer. 637 with 623, another negative 24-minute transfer. The only reasonable transfer on weekdays is a southbound transfer with 618 with 642, which is a 14-minute transfer. I get it that us San Diegans for some reason have this weird complex where we just cannot even touch the rest of SoCal, but can we at least have our commuter rail schedule work with theirs? And for weekends, this is something I've been on for 2 years now. If you know me IRL, you know. The OC line has been stuck at 4 round trips for so long, and it's so frustrating. However, there's one thing about the current weekend schedule that does well. The transfer issue is better. There's a 6-minute northbound transfer with 677 and 1665, an 8-minute southbound transfer with 1660 and 676, and another 8-minute southbound transfer with 1664 and 684. But even with these transfers, the 4 round trips and the last OC line departing LA at 4:27 p.m. on weekends keeps the OC line from being fully usable, for me at least, on weekends. If Metrolink were to add at least a later departure out of LA, maybe like 6 or 8 p.m., that would make this a viable option against Surfliner for getting to and from Orange County from San Diego or Los Angeles. However, despite everything I've said, the OC line is 2nd in ridership on weekdays, but is 5th for weekend ridership. The high weekday ridership is pretty easy to see, because if you're not from San Diego, the OC line is rather frequent and goes to places you'd need to go / want to go on a weekday. And the weekend ridership also makes sense, because the OC line is very inadequate, especially when compared to Surfliner, and I feel that's kind of why Metrolink hasn't put in the effort to increase its service. But the thing is, Metrolink is far cheaper than Amtrak in comparison, and not everyone has the money to spend on an Amtrak Surfliner ticket.
Speaking of Metrolink's relation to Amtrak, let's go over to the line that serves Simi Valley.
The Ventura County line is only good because of its relation to Amtrak Surfliner. The VC line runs from LA to Ventura via the same route as Amtrak Surfliner and most of the same stations. And because of this, the most major selling point of the VC line is the code share with Amtrak from Los Angeles to Ventura downtown. Basically, if you buy a Metrolink ticket along the VC line, you can ride an Amtrak Surfliner train as long as it's not during one of the blockout dates, which is basically just during the holidays. This has made it so VC line trains really only need to run when Surfliner doesn't, which is the case on weekdays. Thanks to the Surfliner code share, the VC line runs close to hourly frequencies from 4 a.m. to midnight. Oh my god, feel that symmetry.
And for weekends, it is once again Not good. I don't know what you expected.
2 round trips for Metrolink. Yeah, I'm very glad that codeshare exists because this would just be sad. On weekends, the VC line is basically just if Amtrak just so happened to run 2 trains from Los Angeles to Stuyvesant Station. And you thought I'd go through this video without getting a jab at Ventura East. Nope, my opinion on this station still stands. If you enjoy living, do not go to Ventura East.
The VC line is last in weekend ridership and is second to last in weekday ridership, which honestly makes sense.
The VC line serves a lot of towns big in farming. Hell, Oxnard is literally known as the strawberry capital of the world. Like, you better be farming the crap out of those strawberries to win that title. The only true commuting I can see happening on the VC line is from around Moore Park / Simi Valley to the great big land of Great Depression, as I've dubbed it.
Weekend ridership also makes sense because if people weren't commuting on this thing during weekdays, God knows no one is taking this thing during weekends.
Ma, I know where we should go this weekend. Camarillo!
And with that, we have saved what is objectively the worst Metrolink line for last.
If you ever think your joke isn't gonna land, just put the Riverside line at the end of it. You'll get the crowds absolutely dying. The Riverside line is that one Metrolink line practically no one talks about, mainly because, well, what is there to talk about with the Riverside line? It runs during peak hour times and peak hour directions -400 and 419, which run in opposite directions. The Riverside line runs as late as 8 p.m. and as early as, my god, 3 a.m.? Sorry, honey, I gotta go. It's 2:45 a.m., and if I don't leave now, I'm gonna miss my Riverside line to Los Angeles. You know I gotta get there before the butt crack of dawn.
And the most arduous and well-known point about the Riverside line is how it doesn't run on weekends.
Yeah, in true commuter rail fashion, the Riverside line has 0 trains running on weekends, which, in the grand scheme of things, makes sense, because if we tried looking for the guy who absolutely had to get to Industry, California on a Saturday afternoon, I don't think we'd ever see that search party ever again. But still, I feel if Metrolink did the basic 2 round trips, or hell, just at least 1 round trip on weekends, it would give them something.
Now, before you start screaming in the comments again, trust me, I'm very aware that one of the main reasons why the Riverside line doesn't run as frequently as the other lines is because the toddler's angry again.
Union Pacific, who for some reason just cannot stay out of my videos even though I live nowhere near UP territory in SoCal, owns the full route of the Riverside line and runs on it rather frequently, meaning they have the power to restrict how much Metrolink can run, which is why we see this rush hour focused schedule with 0 weekend services. And the reason why Metrolink didn't buy it like they did with some of their other lines is because this is Union Pacific's Los Angeles sub, which is a major main line for UP, so giving any bit of it up is not an option for them.
Unlike the whole situation going on with Caltrain and California High-Speed Rail with Gilroy, I very much understand UP's reasoning here. The LA sub is very important to Union Pacific and their profits, and by no means do they want to give it up to anyone. And in order for the Riverside line to run any more frequently than it does currently, a 3rd and maybe even a 4th track would have to be added, which given Metrolink's funds right now, it would not be anywhere near feasible. This is also not very much helped by the fact that the Riverside line's routing is kinda redundant.
Most of the Riverside line stations come pretty close to existing Metrolink stations, and if it doesn't, it's in an area where there isn't much in the immediate surroundings. Like, honestly tell me, what on earth are you going to be doing at Industry when you don't work at one of these warehouses or live in one of these houses? This combined with how the Riverside line only has 7 stations and the mentioned issue of how low frequencies are is why the Riverside line has the lowest weekday ridership and is the only Metrolink line that dropped in ridership in Q4 of 2025. Now, if we compare the Riverside line to the San Bernardino line, which is almost the exact opposite of the Riverside line, and how the frac sheet literally states that 55% of Metrolink riders aren't commuters, we find out that, wow, the more frequent, connective, and efficient your transit is, the more people will ride it and enjoy your service. Another fact for you, fire is hot.
So that's why my hands look like this. And with that, there's an overview on Metrolink, SoCal's flagship rail service. Overall, it's not half bad when you look up close to it.
Metrolink is the definition of a mixed bag. The highs are really high, but the lows are bottom tier commuter rail low. And that's why Metrolink often lands in the middle of the road for me, and past their connectivity, frequencies, and other similar topics, Metrolink really just does the job. Their stations are nothing to write home about, and on board, it's clean. Usually, smells okay, though I will say, the ROTMs have a very specific smell to them. It's not bad, but it's just like this mundane smell that's really hard to describe, but I will say the refurbished Bombardiers are pretty nice. As a service, Metrolink does the job. It's not super flashy, but it's not awful. It's there to get you from point A to point B at a speed often slower than driving, but it still works if you can't or don't want to drive. Wow, I know, I'm for once not calling something amazing or garbage. I don't know how it happened either.
Now, before we move on, I have one more point to make on why Metrolink's frequencies seem to be staying at where they are currently.
As it currently stands, Metrolink owns and operates 60 locomotives, 57 cab cars, and 201 coaches. I'm unaware if that count includes the currently dormant Bombardier coaches that are soon to be refurbished, but if it doesn't, then that number of coaches will soon grow. However, we'd need all three of those numbers to grow to see Metrolink service truly improve. Metrolink's most recent schedule revision added trains to the schedule, and it's about as far as they can go without having to lower the coach count and cram the hell out of trains. Minus weekends, they can absolutely do more on weekends. So I feel after upgrading transit security, which is less of a Metrolink thing and more of a nationwide thing, Metrolink needs to order more rolling stock. Whether that be more locos and coaches, DMUs, or God forbid ZEMUs, Metrolink needs more, because if they don't, then they can never grow past how they are currently.
So there you go, that's Metrolink. Like I said before, it's not horrible, but it doesn't exactly blow me away. Unlike someone.
Everybody, welcome NorCal's flagship commuter rail, Caltrain!
Now, I would usually like to add some anticipation onto who wins this category, but I'm gonna be completely honest with you. Caltrain blows this thing out of the damn water.
Genuinely, I think the only thing Metrolink has against Caltrain is the fact that Metrolink has 7-ish lines, and Caltrain has 1.5, kinda, I'll get to that, lines. Past that, Caltrain has a better rider experience, has better connections with its stations, has far better equipment ignoring the horns and bells, and even though Caltrain is basically an eighth of the lines Metrolink has, they still managed to surpass them in ridership, by 2 million at that. But of course, you didn't come here for a simple overview, you came here to see me have a stroke mid-film while explaining to you why Stadler kisses are criminally underrated.
So first up, let's go over the route. Caltrain runs from San Francisco to San Jose, and if you're just commuting, then Gilroy.
This route is a good route, I don't know what more to say, and the bonus about it is it's connecting two major business and tourist centers, San Francisco as well, San Francisco, I don't think I have to tell you more than that, and San Jose, to sum it up in simple terms. What the hell is this place anymore? What? Hi? What are you doing here? Where are you going? Where are you going? The Bay Area is just the weirdest place in the world. Why is it? Half of this place looks like it's 500 years in the past, and the other half looks like it's 200 years in the future. I don't understand. There are two main reasons why I like Caltrain and see it as California's best rail service. First off is the frequency. On weekdays, Caltrain runs at 30-minute frequencies from 4 a.m. to 10 p.m., and from 10 p.m. to 1 a.m., that's only downgraded to hourly for the last few trains of the night. This is without mentioning how during rush hour, frequencies range from 15 minutes to as low as 5 minutes. Like, holy crap, I really like this service already. And Caltrain has by far some of the best weekend service I've seen on a commuter rail, period. Just like weekdays, it runs 30-minute frequencies from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m., with the last two trains of the day being hourly and 40-minute frequencies because they depart at 11:30 p.m. and 12:05 a.m. from the respective origins. And at that point, the only people the frequencies would be serving is California's flagship Oh Hell No crew of someone who is definitely high, someone who you're surprised is even able to step on the train with how drunk they are, and that one guy who looks like they just came from a 30-year voyage across the Pacific.
Basically, Caltrain service times and frequencies are the best out of any Californian rail service, and just to think, that's only half of why I love this service so much.
The second reason why Caltrain is absolutely, as the kids these days say, goated, is the rolling stock. Caltrain uses a mostly, we'll get to that, full fleet of Stadler KISS EMUs that run on overhead catenary wires. This means that they are zero emissions and don't need extremely heavy batteries or a massive compartment to store fuel cells. They just get power from the wires, it powers the traction motors, and then you just go. This being electric also means that the acceleration is insane, since the majority of the trucks on the train are powered. The entire set accelerates, allowing it to get up to speed quicker, and speaking of speed...
Is this what the kids these days call glaze?
Caltrain currently operates at a max speed of 79 miles an hour, but in the future, that will be up to 110, which will not only make Caltrain the fastest commuter rail outside of the Northeast, but will also make it the fastest rail service period on the entire West Coast, at least until California high-speed rail starts. And don't worry, this isn't some Acela situation of, well, that's the top speed for only a specific portion. No. The Caltrain corridor is straight enough that on express trains, the top speed can actually be reached for a good amount of the route. Back on the topic of the EMUs, these have nice, modern, clean interiors that are quiet on board. I think my only gripe with these cars is the fact that the charging ports are in such an inconvenient position. And the horn and bell, which Stadler, I'll let this one slide because these things are insane if you remove this, but was a raised letter really that big of a stretch for you? And most importantly, was a simple E-bell too much for you?
It's moments like these that make me wish NCTD would electrify Coaster. Or just move to NorCal.
Some of you are probably wondering, why was Caltrain the one that got electrified and not any of the main commuter rails in California? Well, past how a few don't own the trackage they run on, the main reason is because Caltrain pretty much had their hand forced, and I say that in the best way possible. Caltrain's electrification was mostly funded not by Caltrain or their authority, rather the California High-Speed Rail Authority. Why? Well, it's because ever since the start of that project, the plan was to run along Caltrain's corridor from San Jose to San Francisco. And because all high-speed rail systems are electrified, Caltrain had to electrify. If any of you are familiar with the Rosecrans and Santa Fe Springs grade separation projects, then it's basically the same story. California High-Speed Rail will eventually run through the area, so the authority is doing the local services in the area a solid by electrifying and grade separating early.
Overall, Caltrain's rolling stock is great, and just like everything else I've said in this Caltrain segment, I wish this wasn't just relegated to this one little corridor in the Bay Area. Apparently, the California High-Speed Rail Authority opted to electrify the Metrolink lines Metrolink fully owned. But because I guess SoCal just has to maintain its car brain reputation, Metrolink turned down the offer in favor of the EMD F-125s.
And funnily enough, the F-125s were threatened at being replaced by zero-emissions equipment by California law that almost went into effect, mandating all Californian railroads to use fully zero-emissions equipment by 2035. Metrolink was one of the biggest opposers of this law because of the F-125s. Well, Metrolink, had you gone through with the authorities' offer, maybe we wouldn't be in this situation.
Okay, to cut Metrolink some slack, I can see why they turned down the offer. Only electrifying half of your lines while the other half stay as diesel could have easily caused problems, and chances are they would have had to wait till the reconfiguring of LA Union Station, which is still not happening and is gonna take a long while.
But anyway, back on the topic of Caltrain, the luck of them being in the perfect situation for electrification has led to them becoming the Caltrain we know today. Minus one thing.
As mentioned before, Caltrain runs to Gilroy, but a certain toddler isn't gonna let them electrify it.
Union Pacific, who has really just been the ultimate inconvenience recently, owns the trackage south of San Jose, which leads to Gilroy. This trackage is nothing like the trackage along the Peninsula Corridor. It's single-tracked in many places, is infrequent with its services, freight included, and has really nothing to speak for. Because Union Pacific trains are about as predictable as the Surfliner Charger, and because the single tracking of the corridor, Caltrain cannot run more past peak hour trains on weekdays. And even if they did run then a few more, the Gilroy portion doesn't serve enough people to make the pain worthwhile, leaving it in rush hour hell. Thankfully though, Caltrain understands the concept of transfers. So transferring with an electrified service is not only easy, but is quite literally written into the schedule.
Once again, the High-Speed Rail Authority comes to the rescue. I really hope.
If you watched the episode on high-speed rail, you'd know in an attempt to connect the Central Valley with at least one of the service's terminuses, the Authority wants to cut off Merced from the initial operating segment and instead build straight to Gilroy. Once they reach to Gilroy, they will run with Caltrain all the way to San Francisco. Not only meaning the electrification of the corridor, but also meaning the hopeful acquisition of this segment of trackage. The Authority words it as a state-coordinated solution, but I think it's safe to say that means walk up to UP, kick them in the nuts, steal their lunch money, and use said lunch money to buy their trackage and electrify it.
If Gilroy gets fully electrified, then that would allow Caltrain to finally retire their older diesel equipment.
This would mean the 6 MP36s and the 3 F40PH-2 Cats would be retired and or sold off along with their Bombardier equipment.
Oh, you hear that? It's the sound of foamers grabbing pitchforks and the sound of urbanists getting on their knees and praying to the high-speed rail overlords.
To say Caltrain has fallen in the rankings of the funnest to railfan is an understatement. Railfanning Caltrain now is like railfanning a light rail. It's the same train every 15 minutes going one way, then the other, over and over again with literally no change.
But hey, if that's the price we have to pay for a transit system that's actually useful and is competitive to driving, then brother, just shower me in crappy e-bills.
But with all that being said, that's round 1 complete. It's safe to say that while Metrolink is good, and it does its job as a regional rail system in a stupidly car-centric area, it doesn't stand a chance against Caltrain.
And I'll say this much, I still have a good amount to say about Caltrain. When I say this service is genuinely useful and is competitive to driving, I mean it. Like, goddamn, I like this thing.
So, for the final verdict, like I said, NorCal wins this one. That's 1 for NorCal, 0 for SoCal. 3 more rounds to go. Next time, we'll be comparing Surfliner, the Southwest Chief, and the Sunset Limited to Capital Quarter, the California Zephyr, and nope, not doing it. San Joaquin, so be sure to stay tuned for that.
But anyway, I need to wash off my dirty hands here, so... Duh, it's wet!